Talk to me. WSRadio.com.
Welcome to Track Talk, your connection coast to coast and beyond in all the latest news, developments, stake race analysis, and interviews inside the world of thoroughbred horse racing. From California to New York, Florida, and Kentucky, we have you covered. It's post time, live from San Diego. It's Track Talk.
And we welcome you on a Sunday morning live from America's finest city. How are you? Welcome to the program. And no matter where you are, you're listening to Track Talk here from the WS Radio Network on this Sunday. We just got done with a complete day of the NFL, along with the boys from Big Bet, Tommy D, Bobby Hutton, Matty B, and now it's time to go from the fields to the ovals here on this Sunday morning, as we have been doing for a long period of time. If you're new to the broadcast, we are Track Talk. We originate from San Diego, from the WS Radio Network, and we have a very special guest on line with us this morning. Actually, we have a number of guests that will be a part of our program, so we hope you put your Do Not Disturb sign up, and we welcome Kathy Guillermo, Vice President of PETA, who joins us on this Sunday. Kathy, at top of the morning, how are you?
Very well. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, I'm happy that you came on. You know, I've been doing a lot of research, and I've been reading a lot, more so than maybe I've had in the past couple weeks, months, whatever the case might be. And I want to directly go right into a mission statement where your organization believes that animals should not be pets and only live in the wild, and dogs, cats, horses should not be a part of our lives. Is that what you believe?
No, that's not what we believe. We believe, in fact, if you can share a home with a dog or a cat or a horse and you can care for them properly, go out and adopt them. Don't breed them, but go and adopt them. I share my home with a dog and a cat, and just about everybody I work with has companion animals as well.
So the mission statement that you have on your website is not accurate according to what you just mentioned.
That's not our mission statement on our website. Our mission statement is that animals don't belong to us to use for experimentation, for food, for clothing, or for entertainment, or for any other purpose that abuses them.
And you also mentioned that they have the right to live free from human exploitation.
Exploitation, yes, not necessarily human caretaking, because obviously there are so many animals who depend on us, and we are responsible for them and must take care of them.
So let's move forward. You mentioned that you have pets. Do you believe that it's okay for people to have pets? I mean, is it okay for me to have a horse, or is it okay for me to have a dog? And I mean, isn't that what it's all about in regard to having love for that animal?
Sure, I do think it's okay. What we don't approve of is if people are going to breed, for example, dogs and cats, when we have so many who need homes and not enough homes for them. We are opposed to buying dogs and cats from pet stores, for example. But if you go to an animal shelter and adopt an animal, if you can take care of that animal, get two. I mean, we definitely are in favor of that. There have been a number of things written about us taken out of context that just don't convey the truth. But I've been with PETA for 30 years, and I'm telling you, this is the truth. This is what we believe. If you can share your home with a dog and a cat, a horse, a domestic animal who needs a home, then do so.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, like there have been reports, and let me go back and refresh your memory, if I may. An article in the Washington Post in 2015 says PETA's kill rate for 2014 was 81%, with a kill rate in some years exceeding 90%. Is that an accurate statement made by the Washington Post?
Well, I would like to respond to that. I did think we were going to talk about horse racing, but let me respond to that. Where PETA is headquartered in Norfolk, Virginia, we are near some of the poorest areas of the country. And what we found when we set up headquarters there is that in many places in North Carolina and Virginia, there are no veterinarians. there is nobody there to provide any sort of services. So we felt we had to do something. So first of all, there are no spay-neuter clinics. Animals were breeding. There were very small and very poorly run shelters in many of these places. So we set up mobile spay-neuter clinics. We now go through that area providing low-cost or no-cost spay-neuter, including free spay and neutering for all pit bulls. We provide veterinary care. We transport dogs and cats to veterinarians for people if they're not able to do it for themselves. We try to convince people to bring their outdoor animals indoors, and if they won't do that, we provide dog houses and we provide straw. One of the things we found is that there is no one to do euthanasia when dogs and cats are suffering terribly. And I encourage people to go to our website and look at our video about our community animal project. We offer end-of-life services. So when the service you offer is euthanasia for dogs and cats who desperately need it, of course your euthanasia statistics are going to be high. When we bring in healthy animals who can be placed for adoption, they go to local shelters we work with that have high traffic, lots of people coming in and out to adopt. We don't have a shelter like you normally think of. We don't have cages or runs, for example. We have rooms. And our purpose is to prevent the suffering that we see out there. And it's been taken so out of context and so skewed that people have some bizarre idea that somehow we're taking in all these animals and just killing them all, and that's just not the case.
Well, I mean, I'm reading, and I quote that you're founder and president. I would go to work before anyone got there, and I would just kill the animals myself. I must have killed thousands of them, sometimes dozens every day. It doesn't seem like you're protecting the animals rather than just ending their lives.
Well, that was really unfortunate that Ms. Brothers took one sentence out of an entire paragraph of a quote and an entire story. Ms. Newkirk was talking about the 1970s when she took a job in an animal shelter in Maryland where dogs and cats were being horribly abused and then stuffed into a gas chamber to be killed. She was horrified by this, and rather than see that happen, she euthanized the animals herself. She later exposed that animal shelter as the horror that it was. It was shut down. Ms. Newkirk went on to become the pound master and run the Washington, D.C. animal shelter. She set up the first spay-neuter clinic, public spay-neuter clinic in the country. She smashed the gas chamber with a sledgehammer, and she became Washingtonian of the Year, 1980, for all of her work. So to take one sentence out of an entire article about somebody's body of work, I think, was really shoddy journalism.
So you obviously read Donna Barton Brothers' blog on PETA that hit cyberspace and throughout the platforms that it landed. You must have read it. Did you read it in its entirety?
I did read most of it, and I thought, again, what a shame that horse racing once again decides to blame PETA for what its problems are. You know, the problems that racing has could be fixed if they would do it. And I've been saying for the last 10 years, and in the last 5 years in meetings with Del Mar, with Stronach, with Churchill Downs, with the Jockey Club, get rid of the drugs, get rid of the whips, put synthetic tracks in. Take care of the horses from the moment they're born until the moment they die. Don't sell them to countries where they get slaughtered, and put in CT scan equipment. I've been saying that for a long time, and for 10 years now, people have been saying, oh my goodness, look at PETA, you hypocrite. Now, come on. If I went away tomorrow, the whole public knows about what's going on in horse racing.
So let me ask you this without interrupting you. I'm kind of confused here. Is your objective is to enhance the game of thoroughbred horse racing and fix the problems that it has, or to ban horse racing? I'm confused on where you stand.
Well, let me be very clear. PETA opposes horse racing. We're never going to support it. But it's an industry that is there and is not going away tomorrow, and we feel an obligation to press for those changes that are needed to spare horses. You could do so much in racing to stop the deaths, and people resist doing it until very recently when Belinda Stronach took the lead and the California Horse Racing Board took the lead to make changes. There was so much resistance to it. So I have spent many years now working for change because I want to see the deaths end and I want to see the suffering end.
May I ask you how the marriage became apparent between Belinda Stronach and you? I mean, did you seek them out, or did she seek you out, or how did it all come together?
Well, I've been talking to the Stronach group for several years, for quite a few years, as I have with other people in racing. As I mentioned, I've met with Del Mar, I've met with Churchill Downs, I've met with the Jockey Club many times. We've talked with people in racing over the years, so this wasn't a brand new thing. We had proposed first of all, it was our proposal that led to the Jockey Club and the industry forming the Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance back in 2011 and 2012. And we had proposed the pop-up technology that is on the betting terminals that allows bettors to donate a certain percentage to Thoroughbred Aftercare. So we already had a relationship with them. And we had already spoken to them about many of the things that they decided to do, to make changes for the horses. So this wasn't a new relationship. And, of course, I was in touch with them immediately when when the public began to complain about the horses dying. So that's how that came about.
Let me ask you this, Kathy, if I may. I would assume you've been on the backstretch of a racetrack, have you not?
I have, yes.
Okay. I mean, do you feel the love that these horse women and horse men have toward their horses?
I do. And
okay.
In fact, much of what I know about racing in today's world comes from people who work on the backstretch. There are people in your industry who really want change, and I'm talking dozens and dozens of people. I take calls every week from people who work on racetracks around the country who are upset by things they see and want change.
Give me an example.
You can imagine how...
Give me an example.
Well, I remember getting a call not long ago from somebody at a racetrack in the Midwest who said to me, somebody's using a buzzer on a horse here. And the way that they're doing it is they're sewing it into the blanket into the blanket that goes under the saddle. And that's how they get it done. It's that kind of thing. Or I often get calls from people who have seen a horse who looks vulnerable to breakdown and is very worried. There was one just not long ago, a horse called Monarch Graves, that somebody told me about who was racing at that time in Delaware. And they said, this horse doesn't look sound. He's gelding. He's been racing for a long time. I got in touch with the racing commission and the track in Delaware, and they sent somebody out and they checked him out. He was okay. But I don't go to media with everything people call me about. I often go directly to the track. So those are some examples.
And what part of media understands when you contact them or what you're delivering? I mean, it's a one-sided edge, so to speak. I was just wondering how the media is misinformed, and they get statements from you and they take it and they run with it, and it might not be the correct route to go or the correct information. You would agree with that, right?
I wouldn't. I mean, I don't put out a statement that I don't think is accurate and that I don't think presses for something that's very important. We need to be holding people in racing accountable, or the state does. Law enforcement needs to be holding people accountable when their actions lead to the death of a horse. I mean, we know from the thousands of necropsies done on horses in California, for example, that 90% of them have a pre-existing injury at the site of the break. And yet, until recently, all kinds of medications could legally be given to horses that might mask that injury. Everything that we've called for is something that we truly believe is going to enhance the safety of the horses in racing.
So your main objective is to protect the horse. Am I correct?
My main objective is to protect the horse.
Okay, let me ask you this.
Those horses are not suffering from the moment they're born until the moment they die at old age, and not at age 6 in the slaughterhouse.
Let me ask you this. 2017 St. Louis Ray, the horse fires, did your organization facilitate or come to the rescue of any of these equines or offer any assistance or help? Or what did your organization do to benefit this tragic situation?
Well, I've been asked that a lot. And I think it's funny that you want us to stay the hell out of racing until somebody needs help, and then where were we?
No, I'm just asking you. I mean, you're making the claim that you've done so much for racing and you have the horse's protection at heart. I was wondering, when we really needed the support during this tragic time, this radio program was on the grounds immediately when that fire broke out. And I think anybody who would have been on the Del Mar Fairgrounds, and I'm proud of San Diego and the neighboring communities for the love and support and the offering. And I want to tell you, as long as I've been doing this radio show, one thing will remain as clear, and I'll take it to my grave, by the way, is the fact that when I saw a horse coming, he was somewhat affected by some burns and a fire. And I saw that young Hispanic man who had a burn on his arm, and he was singed, and it was just a real rough sight because I knew he went through battle. And he put his life in front of that horse to save that horse and to bring him to safety. And that horse understood exactly that human saved his life. I was just wondering, where was...
Well, let me answer the question, though, because I appreciate all that you're saying, and I appreciate the heroism from so many people during all these fires. What I did was get on the phone with the president of racing at Stronach, because they own that track, and I said, "Are you okay? Do you need any help?" And he responded, "I think we got it covered." So you can call and ask him if you like, but I certainly did reach out and ask if any help was needed.
Why would you call the Stronach Group when the fires happened in San Diego?
Because they own San Luis Rey Downs, so they were in charge of dealing with that.
Good point. Good point there. So I want to ask you this. So I think we need change. I think change is good. You look at different businesses, industries, commerce, what have you. I think that we're all set up to change. I applaud California. I think California and this movement could be a silver lining for the entire industry. But I have a question for you. Why is all the emphasis on California and the thoroughbred breed? What about quarter horses, standard breds? Are we including that to be a change that you foresee?
Well, fortunately, all of the new rules that California has enacted, and I agree with you, by the way, that they have been very progressive, the most progressive for racing in the last 20 years, but all of those rules will apply to standard breds and quarter horses, too. But I take your point. There is a lot of work that needs to be done in all areas. A few years ago, we got in touch with Jeff Garrell, who owns Meadowlands, because we've been getting reports of drugging and issues at the trotting tracks. And Jeff Garrell, I wish that everybody in thoroughbred racing had been as responsive as he was. He immediately enacted a program to get the drugs out of the harness racing, and he's stuck to his word. He does extensive out-of-competition testing, and when he catches people who are cheating, he kicks them off his track. I mean, he's really taken this to where it goes. We complained about the whipping. They modified the whipping rules. I think they should get rid of the whipping entirely. But he's done a lot, and that's part of the reason I have not dealt with trotting as much, other than the fact that it's a smaller industry than thoroughbred, is because people in it have been a bit more responsive. But you're right. It needs to be across the board.
You know, there's 38 racing jurisdictions throughout the country. One of the problems that thoroughbred racing has always had is that we have no commissioner. Baseball has a commissioner, football has a commissioner, basketball has a commissioner, golf has a commissioner, but there's no commissioner. Why doesn't your organization try to get a commissioner to rule the 38 jurisdictions rather than it being controlled state by state?
Well, we have, is the short answer. I mean, when you may remember our investigation of drugging in the Steve Asmussen stable in 2014. What came out of that, what our request at that time was federal legislation to change the drugging rules, and the Horse Racing Integrity Act was then introduced. But we've got to have people behind that in order for it to pass. I think now we're at a place in California where the rules changes have gone beyond what the Horse Racing Integrity Act does, but at least it would be some uniform regulation. So my understanding is that Senator McConnell in Kentucky is not behind it, and until he is, then others won't. And for him to be behind it, we need everybody in racing to be behind it. I think one of the biggest issues your industry faces is lack of agreement on how best to deal with these things. You've got half the people saying, we need change, we need a commissioner, and the other half of the people saying, leave us alone, we know what we're doing. And that's just going to mean chaos.
You're right. We need unification. We need a figurehead to lay the groundwork. I want to get back to a comment that you made, and you agreed that the reforms that California, and once again, I think California has taken the lead on this, and I hope it could spread throughout the country where other racing jurisdictions will follow suit. But why haven't your organization applauded California publicly or through the media for the changes that they made and how fluid the changes are made? They reduced the CCs of LASIK from 10 to 5. They are vetting horses on a very, very stringent situation where that not only once, twice, but before that horse is able to run, he's being looked through and through. You know, I think California has been the leader, as I mentioned, but I don't hear any goodness coming from your organization or other of the extremists.
Well, I have actually done that, and I was quoted not long ago in Tim Sullivan's column in the Louisville Courier-Journal saying that the reason that we would not be protesting at Santa Anita during the Breeders' Cup is because that track has done more than any other in the country to spare horses. And I was in the Stronach news release when they first announced their changes, praising what they've done. So we do give credit where credit is due. I understand your point. Our statements are very strong. Our statements are meant to bring about the further change. And I sometimes get angry. You know, I get angry because horses keep dying, and I think you can get that number down to zero, or at the very least you've got to put everything in place in racing that will give the horses a chance to be spared from death. So I do give California praise, and I do give all the tracks their praise, but I also think there's more that needs to be done.
You know, Thanksgiving's just right around the corner, and I was asking you, who's defending the turkeys? I mean, 46 million turkeys will be killed and cruelly killed. I mean, who are you guys defending Thanksgiving?
Oh, you bet.
I mean, should we eliminate?
Yeah, you bet. Go to our website. There's all PETA.org. There's all kinds of stuff about Thanksgiving turkeys. And, you know, horse racing was not something we ever meant to take on as a campaign. You know, in 2008 when I saw Eight Bells break both her ankles, I said to my boss, you know, I think there are some things that horse racing could do that would be pretty straightforward that would make some change. I was incredibly naive because I had no idea what I was walking into with people in horse racing. But she said, well, let's see what we can do. If you can make some changes to spare horses, that would be great. So, but most of, you know, what I do, the majority of my time is work on getting animals out of laboratories. And we have whole divisions that are dedicated to things like the Thanksgiving turkeys, getting vegan food into restaurants and stopping factory farming and that kind of thing. So people can have a look at our website and see that.
Well, I'm a big football fan. You know, my team is the Pittsburgh Steelers. We have 17 players that are either concussed or have injuries, and athletes and horses are the same. You know, horses are born to run, they get injured, and it's the ugly part of the game, but you know, horse racing goes back to the mid-1600s. I think we can sound the bell and improve this game, but when does the pressure become relieved from allowing, you know, Craig Fravel, who is now the chief at Stronach, really cares about the direction that horse racing is heading? We have made changes. These changes have been called upon us, and racing has responded. I applaud racing for making these changes rather than remain pat. I think with everybody working together, we can improve it. And I believe that there are some big numbers that racing contributes, like $4 million that Karma, a nonprofit organization that retire, retrain, and rehome thoroughbreds. $27.5 million, the money donated to the Grayson Jockey Club for research that impacts all horses. The total financial impact of horse racing. What does horse racing mean to the state of California? How many jobs? 77,000. I know people say, well, there's a homeless situation going on in Los Angeles is running rampant, but if we ban horse racing, what are we going to do with the 77,000 people that make this game a living? And more so, what are we going to do to the horses? Are we going to send them all into the wild? But I believe we are moving forward. The start's there. I would urge you and your organization is to give California racing a chance to improve and reform. The reforms, it doesn't happen overnight. It's step by step by step. But you have to, and you have, and I appreciate, because we never talked. We've only communicated through emails and what have you. But I appreciate you coming on. I feel you. I hope that we can improve thoroughbred horse racing, and we all need to work together. And with that, I say thank you very much, and have a great Sunday, and hope that we can remain in contact.
Thanks very much. I appreciate the time.
You got it. We appreciate it as well. Kathy G. from PETA. We take a break. We come back. My friend, long time, when she was a leading jockey, Donna Barton Brothers is going to join us. Part 2 of Track Talk live on a Sunday. I'm Felix Taverna along with Wade Taylor producing and directing. You're listening to Track Talk on the WS Radio Network. Hi, this is Felix Taverna, and I'm here to share with you a great place to begin your day, and that is the Broken Yoke Cafe. 15 San Diego locations to serve you. Downtown, Mission Valley, Bonita, East Lake, San Diego State, Point Loma, Mira Mesa, Del Mar, La Costa, Escondido, Oceanside, San Marcos, and Rancho San Diego. Benedict's, omelets, French toast, crepes, pancakes and waffles, sandwiches, wraps, burgers, soups, and salads. Start your day at the Broken Yoke Cafe.
Chris Murch, Captain Email here, former owner of WS Radio, back in studios with 21 tips to increase sales. And they're real easy to get. Just whip out that smartphone, even that phone that still does texting, and text 21 tips to 22828. That's 21 tips to 22828. 21 tips, no space, to 22828, and you'll be getting 2 tips a day for the next 2 weeks.
The most trusted information provider in horse racing is now the leading logic in sports handicapping. The Daily Racing Form has launched DRF Sports. Visit sports.drf.com to learn more and get the edge you need to win big. Access their exclusive database of trends and powerful angles for just $5 per week. And if you use promo code PENNY, you'll get your first week for just 1 cent. Visit sports.drf.com today. When you talk about San Diego legends, you got to talk about Big John at Tip Top Meats, a European delicatessen unlike anything in San Diego. You know, it's located in Carlsbad, and traditionally, it's been a fan favorite for many. Big John does it right. With the holiday season just around the corner, it's your best bet. Big John, Tip Top Meats, and top shelf fish. I mean, that's a daily double. You've been there, you know, it's legendary.
Tired of presentations with no impact, no inspiration, and no traction? Do dull speakers have you and your team disengaged and distracted by smartphones? Christopher McCullough brings energy, insights, and 2 decades of experience, delivered with punch, humor, and heart. Your team will leave energized, uplifted, and with a sense of purpose. Visit ChristopherMcCullough.com to bring some heat to your next speaking engagement. McCulloughe. ChristopherMcCullough.com.
Have you tried DRF Formulator PPs at DRF.com? Take your handicapping to the next level with premium features not found in DRF Classic PPs, including one-click access to complete race charts, full-screen video replays with both standard and head-on views, add your notes for a card, horse, or trip, and access from any device. View Timeform US pace figures, get customized printing options, and so much more. Try DRF Formulator PPs today at DRF.com/PPs.
Talk, Talk to me. WSRadio.com.
Welcome to Track Talk, your connection coast to coast and beyond in all the latest news, developments, stake race analysis, and interviews inside the world of thoroughbred horse racing. From California to New York, Florida, and Kentucky, we have you covered. It's post time, live from San Diego. It's Track Talk.
All right, we are back here on a Sunday morning. We welcome you no matter where you are. My phone's been dinging, and I appreciate that. Hey, look, this is a very important part of time in thoroughbred horse racing, and I, like so many, was tired of just being run over by the truck, and someone has to step up. I don't think anybody has stepped up as big as my next guest. And I go back a long way with her. I knew her when she was Donna Barton, one of the leading female jockeys in the Midwest at Churchill Downs, and she joins us as Donna Barton Brothers on a Sunday morning live from New York. And Donna, top of the morning, how are you?
I'm well, Felix. How are you? It's been a long time. I've acquired a new name and got a lot of miles on me since the last time we talked with your host, KD, back in the day.
Oh, yeah, Kenny Daniels. He just loved you, and I miss him. You know, Kenny and I kicked off the radio show in 1995, and we worked almost 2 decades together bringing horse racing to the public. And I could remember when I would tell him I have Donna Barton coming on, and at that time you were a first call rider for D. Wayne Lucas, and you were so beautiful to come on to the radio program, and you're more beautiful than you ever were. And I just wanted to thank you for giving up your Sunday morning. I could talk about your career. I could talk about your mom being one of the first female jockeys that ever raced.
But I think you called to talk about the article.
Yeah, absolutely. I did. But I wanted to go ahead and let people know that you walk the walk and you talk the talk, because 2 of your siblings are riders, and your mom was a jockey, and we'll leave it at that. But you wrote a blog that shook the whole racing world this week, and it was delivered in fine fashion. What was the inspiration behind it? What was the motive behind you writing this blog?
Oh, gosh. Well, Felix, it had been brewing for a few months. I guess I'll back up a little bit, and let's go back about a year. And about a year ago, I actually wanted to write something about how we could do better. And then over the past few months, I just felt like we had come under attack when we really were trying to do better. And we still do have some ground to make up, no question, between, as bad as we can be and as good as we can be. But at the end of the day, people, like dogs and horses, respond better to positive reinforcement than incessant pressure. And I felt like we had received incessant pressure as of late in a situation where it was obvious that we were trying. And in those sorts of situations, if it was just human interaction rather than one entity versus another entity, it would be bullying. If the way that these animal rights extremist groups were behaving was just a person behaving that way toward another person, it would be bullish behavior. And it was just time to stand up for our sport, for our horses, for horse racing. And I guess I kind of kept saying, like, somebody needs to stand up for us. And then finally I just decided I will stand up for us, because I believe in what we do. I've ridden horses, been around horses since my earliest memory. I mean, from my earliest memory, they were my best friends. And so you're not going to be able to shame me and convince me that everything that we do with horses and horse racing is bad, because I know it's not, and I know where it comes from. And it was just time for us to talk about it.
Do you feel that these extremists and these activists, animal activist groups are trying to halt the connection between us and our animals and our pets?
Well, I listened to your prior guest, and I do want to say that, one thing I want to be clear on is that I feel like any of these groups that raise awareness about human or animal suffering and get people to do better, there's good that comes from that. And there's certainly good that's come from some of their actions. But it was just time to get the pressure valve off of us a bit because we are trying. But at the end of the game, at the end of the day, the quotes from your prior guest was that, let me be clear, PETA opposes horse racing and we will never be for it. So what do you think their end game is, right? So their end game, and also in another segment of that, she said that she thinks that we'll be able to get to zero with the number of fracture injuries. Well, as I wrote in my article, fracture injury and death from the subsequent injuries to that fracture, the bleeding or what have you, is the number one cause of death in horses throughout history. So before we ever had them in a field, even in fields, probably on, reservations now out in Las Vegas, wherever horses run wild, it's the number one cause of death with horses is fracture injury. So if God can't get us to zero, I don't know how we're going to get us to zero. So if PETA's agenda is to get us to zero and they're not going to let off the pressure till we get to zero, that's just not going to happen. And so we're just going to have to stand together a bit more. And yes, we can do better, but we also have to stand together a bit more and stick up for the good people, the good guys.
Look,
the good women.
Absolutely, and there's a lot of great people that are a part of this sport that love it. And I made reference to the traumatic St. Louis Ray fires. That day, I saw people with their heart, really the love they had for these equines. I wanted, I took a lot of heat because I wanted to get Kathy G on, and I took a lot of heat through a number of platforms. And I don't have to apologize to anyone. I've been doing this radio program for a long period of time, and I really love this game, like you love this game, and I love the horses. But I couldn't understand one thing, and one of the reasons why it really led me to her is that. Is this organization, they want reform or do they want to ban the game? Okay, so what happens if we do make all these changes and we show improvement on the reforms? Are they going to ban it anyway because it's not good enough? And so my point is, with the reforms going into place, and like I mentioned with Kathy on this, is that I applaud California. I really do. I mean, California came and they were ready to say, okay, look, we will make changes. We recognize that maybe our model is broken. So, I don't want to hear excuses. I want solutions. And so let's dive into this and let's find solutions rather than problems. You would agree that California has made great reforms, wouldn't you?
Well, first of all, let me just say that in listening to Kathy Guillermo speak, it certainly sounds like she's a reasonable person. You listen to her talk, and I've read many of her statements, listened to her on your show, and she sounds very reasonable. But what's the only thing that really scared me from what she said is I think we can get that number to zero. And so I think that they will continue to put pressure on all racetracks until we get that number to zero, and God can't get that number to zero, so that's not going to happen. But Santa Anita in the past year has reduced their catastrophic rate of injuries by half. They've cut it in half. And so that is a lot of progress that they're really not getting any credit for. And so I think, that the animal rights organizations can't shut down horse racing, but they can put enough pressure on people and put enough bad pictures out there and enough bad publicity out there to get people to side with them. And that's why we have to make sure that we're telling our story, because nobody's doing that for us. So we have to make sure we're telling our story, and Santa Anita needs to let people know over the course of the past year, we're not at perfect, and we're never going to be at perfect, but we've cut our rate of fatalities in half, and that's good. That's really good.
It's a start, and we can't get it all in one swoop. We have to bridge it together, piece by piece, make those necessary changes. I'm sure that you saw the beautiful Breeders' Cup at Santa Anita. You know, they had 22 races, and 21 of them were perfect. And the last one, unfortunately, with the injury and the euthanization of Mongolian Groom, brought them all out. They came out of the woodwork, and all they could talk about was the death of Mongolian Groom, in which one is too many, as I've always said. But, I mean, the job that Santa Anita and the Breeders' Cup put on the show was almost perfect until the last 200 yards. But yet again, the media only wants to talk about the ugly part, and nobody wants to give credit to the changes in what Santa Anita has done. And I have. And I ask, why hasn't your organization, Kathy, released a statement saying, hey, we appreciate the job Santa Anita is doing. It's not an end all, but we're moving towards, a better situation and a better result. And no, rather than, just diving on and burying the sport more, no matter what good or what effort that Santa Anita. I want to ask you, Donna, your blog was absolutely beautiful. You must have researched it very diligently, and I mean, you really came up with some mind-boggling points that you made in regard to PETA, where they're not pro-animal, they're pro-PETA. Could you expand on that thought a little bit?
Yeah, well, first of all, let me just refer back to the Breeders' Cup. Obviously, I was there, and I covered it from horseback. And, it was just a magnificent couple of days, and I was able to see in the eyes of all the jockeys the love that they had for the animals, the appreciation that they had for the animals, whether they won or didn't win. But so when I say that, first of all, the article, honestly, it did take a lot of research, but it wasn't hard to research. Like I said in the article, all you have to do is Google people against PETA, and there are thousands. And so it was just a matter of disseminating which information I wanted to add to the article. And so one of the really good places that you could go to is just go to activistfacts.com. So it's activistfacts.com. And they have all sorts of facts on there. And in there, they say that, PETA spends less than 1% of its multi-million-dollar budget annually helping animals. So where does their money go? A lot of their money goes to legal defense. They have over a dozen lawyers. This is from 2017. 2017, PETA's legal department employed over a dozen lawyers because they are highly litigious. So between suing organizations and being sued by organizations, they spend an awful lot of money on legal defense. They also give out grants to known terrorist organizations that are really, really far extremist groups like the Animal Liberation Front. And this is all in this on the activistfacts.com. I didn't make this up. I mean, I just went to, all you have to do is do a little bit of research. And so I'm all for supporting humane treatment of animals. Felix, as I said in the article, I'm a vegetarian because I don't think that an animal should have to die so that I can eat. But I'm not an extremist. I eat dinner with my husband every night who's not a vegetarian, right? And so I am all for improving the conditions and the welfare of animals who are living with and amongst us. I just would like for them to stop picking on us and acting like we don't do anything right, because we do a lot more right than we've ever done wrong. And a good example of that is when you asked her what they've done, and somebody called because somebody was using a buzzer, and so they called PETA to fix that. All they would have to tell is one other person on the backside that somebody was using an electrical device, and that person would be rolled off. I mean, we police ourselves pretty well if we know about something, and so why anybody would get an outside organization involved with something that we all find despicable, I would have no idea.
Well, I want to ask you this. What's your greatest takeaway from the blog? I mean, you put a lot of time into it. It was well received. I when I tell you that I was at Del Mar this weekend, if one person stopped me and asked me if I read your blog, there was 100. And I swear, I'm not making this up, that you, and I think I texted that, you were the talk of the track on Friday when I went there after your blog was released. What's been the one big takeaway that you'll remain proud of the writing?
I think the one main takeaway that I'm the proudest of is that people now feel like they are standing together rather than alone. So many of us have felt like this is our passion, and we've felt ashamed for it, and felt like we should be ashamed for it. And the article let people see that we are all in this together. We stand by this together because we do it for the right reasons, no matter what extremist organizations might suggest.
Do you think now that there has been some resistance from our side and a fight back attitude finally? I mean, I was approached by a couple other people to come on the radio program, and I was honored that they reached out to me. And it all started with me releasing that she was coming on, and then your blog. I had no idea that your blog was going to hit the next following day, and it's just unbelievably responded to by many. And then Pete Fortinelli wrote a column in regard to.
Very good column. I read it this morning.
It was terrific. It was in the San Francisco Chronicle. And now people are standing up and fighting back because, they said, like, how could you have her on? Well, I'll tell you why I wanted to have her on, because nobody else was saying anything about this, and I was just tired. I mean, this year has been the most trying time of promoting thoroughbred horse racing, a game that I love and the people that I love, because I see it firsthand. These people love these horses, and everybody was just standing by waiting for the next shoe to drop or the next attack until somebody stood up. And who was it? It was you, Donna Barton, that came and no, I'm telling you, it was you, because I think that somebody, one of the trolls on Twitter said, how could you expose the enemy? Well, I wanted to find out what her intent was. Was her intent to improve racing or ban racing? And I think your comment was sometimes it's good to expose the enemy because you see what their agenda is. And I agree with you. I've never spoken to Kathy G from PETA, and I didn't speak to her for good reason, because I just wanted to come straight, and I just wanted to put what was on my mind straight to her, and we got her to agree. And I think that's a start, because, some of these people, these extremists, they don't like the reason at all. And they have no reason within their realm. But at least she said, yes, there has been reform. There has been changes. And I think that's all what we're looking for. We can't get it all back. And I agree with you. We're not going to get...
Okay, but let me be clear. I don't want, my call to action is not stand up and fight. My call to action is stand up and show why you love horses. And Sophie Doyle posted a really beautiful, just cute little video on Twitter today that said, let a horse whisper in your ear and breathe in your heart. You will never regret it. And there's this horse that's nuzzling on her head, and she's just interacting with that horse. And that's what my call to action is, Felix, for people to post a picture with the first horse they loved, with a picture with the horse that they love right now, so that people see that we are not abusing animals. These horses love us, and we love them.
And this organization doesn't want to see you have a relationship with your horse.
No. Well, in the comments, again, some of these have been from online and some from what Kathy said this morning. But she said that, their end game is to stop the use of animals. And part of what she said is, for entertainment or in any other way that abuses them. And her inference was that if we are racing horses for either entertainment or because this has turned into a business, then we are abusing them. And I don't like that entertainment equals abuse. I think that is a really strong allegation that is unfounded and not correct.
What has been the response to your blog? To reach out to me and share with our audience that I'm sure there are other executives from racetracks that mentioned your work. Share with us some of the response from other jurisdictions outside of California.
Oh gosh, yeah, it's been shared widely. My webmaster actually sent me a text a couple of days ago. This was the day after it had gone out, and she said that it had been viewed over 25,000 times. Again, this was 2 days ago, and that essentially people from every country that you could think of had read the article. She started to name the list, and it was a long list, and it just went on and on and on. And she said, and I haven't even named all the countries. So Australia, Ireland, New Zealand, the list goes on and on. So it's been shared widely because I think universally people who are in horse racing or other horse disciplines for that matter, whether it's dressage or eventing or show jumping, whatever it is, universally people who have had a friendship, a relationship with horses and have ridden them have come under attack, and we all are tired of it because we know we're in it for the right reasons. And so I think it gave everybody a way to say, exactly, this is what I've been wanting to say, this is what I've been thinking, and I'm in it for the right reasons, and I'm not going to take this lying down anymore.
And that's the way I feel. I felt abused. I felt abused from the comments that they made over the period of the year. I mean, look, we're in California, so we're feeling it closer than anybody outside the state of California because we support our California racing venues, Santa Anita, Los Al, Del Mar. And I got to tell you that there are times during this year that I drove to the studio and said, why am I doing this? Because I'm not feeling good. I mean, every day you woke up and the first story on the news was about situations that happened, and it was unfortunate. It was the ugliest of all the years. But I want to ask you, Donna, I believe that for some reason I feel energized, and I appreciate you so much for coming on to the radio program and writing this piece. For some reason, I feel like the playing field is shortened itself, in that, we have not maybe a level playing field, but we've shortened this distance from where we were last week to where we are today, because now they understand that they have some resistance from the other side, which, quite frankly, very few, if any, resisted at all. And they allowed them to run rampant and do whatever they want. They've asked for this reform, we gave them that. They asked for that reform, we gave them that. They wanted this, we gave them that. We gave them a lot, and they never even said thank you and appreciated what we did until right now, where she said, yes, I do agree that, Santa Anita has done a good job, and they have, they have responded. Do you agree the same way? Do you think from your blog that we have sort of shortened that playing field?
I think it feels that way to people, absolutely. But make no mistake, there's a reason why people are afraid of them. I mean, all these animal rights activist groups, the more research I did, quite honestly, there were times when I was physically ill about the things that I read. And I'm not going to go into detail in that. If you click on my links in the article and then you click on the links from those links, it's not pretty. And so I've installed security cameras all around my home because I realized that they don't necessarily play fair. And I'm not calling out any one animal rights extremist group when I say that. So be clear that I'm not saying this group or that group. I'm just saying that, and some of them are just bad seeds within those extremist groups, right? Like, obviously we know that not all Muslims are terrorists, but a lot of terrorists are Muslims, and those are the bad seeds that make Muslims look bad when, in fact, Muslim is a religion. It's not a terrorist group. And so I'm not implying that any one of these groups is necessarily the bad one, and I'm not implying that any of them are overall bad, but there are some bad seeds in them, and there's a reason why we're afraid to speak up and to stand up against them, and it's because they retaliate. And that could happen to me to some extent. It has already. But I think that if we stand together and we stand as a unified voice, that it becomes less effective, the retaliation.
What do you mean it has already? Could you like to share anything about that?
Just messages that I've received. I won't go into everything because I don't want to give people a voice that I don't want to have a voice in my life, but messages that I've received. And, let's just go with messages that I've received and leave it at that. And I feel like, I'm fortunate in that I'm not in a situation where I'm having to go to a racetrack every day right now, because then people would be able to track me and figure out exactly when I come and when I go and where I am. And so it's a little easier for me right now to be able to stand up to these people than it would be for a jockey who's currently riding at a track every day, or a trainer who's currently training at a track every day. And so I'm glad that I decided to take this on, because really it's easier for me at this point in time than it would be for other people.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I'm so happy you did take it on. I'm so happy I took it on. Like I said, there's a lot of folks that said, how could you give her a platform? I wanted to find out exactly. I didn't give her a platform, by the way. Her platform was given by Belinda Stronach and the Stronach group to bring her in, whatever. You heard her say that. She already had a platform. This platform was going on for a long time. I wanted to find out exactly what her end game was, what her organization's end game was. Was it the reform racing or end racing? And I give her credit. I do. I was sort of blown away a little bit when she said, yes, you know what, there has been improvements and we want to see it. But can we really trust them? Because they've been on the offense and they've been trying to bury the sport for a period of time. And they got their in and everybody just watched it develop. But we sort of fought back. And ironically, this was not intended. I posted that she was coming on, and then the next day your blog miraculously appeared, and I'm going to tell you, it was like a saint, because let me tell you, you talk about getting messages. People called me and said, you can't, how it's going to be the lowest rated show, and how could you go ahead and do this to horse racing? Because you know what, I love horse racing. I love the people.
I think dialogue is always good, Felix. Anytime you can have dialogue, you can get to solutions. If you're afraid to have dialogue, you can't reach solutions. So I'm with you. I think it's not a mistake. Dialogue is good. The more dialogue we have, the better.
I agree. What are you going to do today? Watch any football? New Orleans Saint fan, are you?
Well, this might come as a surprise to you, but I'm still very busy with the things that have gone on with the article, and so I'm still busy answering messages. And some of them are on social media. A lot of them on social media, because I want people to know that I hear them, I see them, I feel them, and I want people to feel like we're in this together. And I don't want people to think I just wrote this article and then I just walked away. I'm there with them, and so I continue to try to respond to people and let them know I'm listening.
And my follow-up question to that would be: is that, will there be a follow-up to this blog, or will you continue to keep the pressure on and keep us connected in what you're feeling, what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what you believe in?
Well, if you go to my website, donnabrothers.com, and then click on blog, you'll see that I do blog from time to time, but I don't write on demand. I just write when I feel compelled to, when I feel passionate about something. I did write about the disqualification of maximum security from the win placing in the Kentucky Derby. If you go back some months before that, I also wrote about what's going on at Santa Anita, thoughts on the Santa Anita crisis. This is from April 22nd, 2019. And so I do write when I feel compelled to write and when I feel passionate about something. So whether or not there's going to be a follow-up to this depends upon whether or not I feel compelled to do that, Felix.
And you have that right, my dear. Hey, let me share this. Let me share this with you, because I went back into my think tank and I had to go back, and I remember Kenny and I were in the studio in Las Vegas, and you were Donna Barton at that time, and I believe that we called you the week of your wedding. So if I stand correct, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you and Frankie Brothers, your husband, are celebrating your 21st anniversary.
Very well done. We celebrated our 21-year anniversary yesterday.
Unbelievable. Almost to the day. I can't thank you enough, my friend. You know, I've been a big fan of yours forever. Since your retirement in 1998, you have done such great work on horseback, covering the Triple Crown races, the Breeders' Cup, whatever you've been asked to do. You have brought the human element on horseback, which I applaud you for all your work, but I couldn't applaud you much more than what you've done. We'll visit soon, and thank you once again, Donna. I appreciate it.
Felix. Thank you.
Donna Barton Brothers. There it is. And we'll continue moving forward. Racing is what it is. It's a beautiful thing with beautiful people behind it. And that's our position here on Track Talk.